Hey guys, I want to ask you a question. If a video game could change your life for the better, would you play it? Seriously, if you sat down at a video game and became the absolute best at it, better than anybody in the galaxy, and it would turn you into a bona fide hero, would you play it? Well, if I was stuck living in a trailer park, fixing TV antennas and plumbing up random leaks, and the best life I had to look for was drunkenly banging my girlfriend on camping trips on the weekend, I think I would play that game. Today, of course, we're talking about The Last Starfighter.
You owe me one, Alex.
Before we go any further, make sure to click like and subscribe. That way you'll get to see more content like this. Also, to help other people find this content. You can also join my Patreon. There'll be links down below. And a reminder at the end of the video. For now, enjoy the rest of the video. So The Last Starfighter, it was released in 1984, and it was part of the new wave of science fiction that was inspired by Star Wars. It's generally considered a movie that doesn't hold up to modern standards because of the primitive special effects. Of course, it was one of the first movies to use a lot of CG. We'll talk about that later. It's a basic story about a kid stuck in a small community. He's bored with his life and frustrated, and he wants to go out to the big city and make it big. And naturally, he wants to bring his girlfriend with him. So the movie starts off by showing our hero, Alex Brogan, being a good kid, helping his mom, generally taking care of the people around him. After work, to relax, he plays his video game. For those of you who are too young to remember these, it's a console video game. It's basically, you put a computer, usually the early ones were 8-bit, there were some 16-bit. I don't think they ever made the transition to 32-bit. And put it in this wooden console with controls, and a screen and speakers, and you put quarters in it. You could only run the one game you were playing. That's a console video game. There isn't time to explain what coins are. You're going to have to ask your parents. Then the movie goes on to introduce the girlfriend and the teenage rivals, little brother, and so on. We get some words of wisdom from the old black dude.
You get your chance. Important thing is when it comes, you got to grab it with both hands. Hold on tight.
Then Alex plays the video game again, and this time he beats the high score. He sets a record.
Oh my God, was it 900,000?
Bust the record.
And this is such a small community that this event is literally the most exciting thing that has ever happened to anybody who lives there.
Alex is going for the record. Come on. Come on.
And then overnight, we get to see the video game acting all crazy because, of course, we knew something was going to happen since the game name is the same as the movie. And then we see the game's creator show up. It reminds us a lot of that one guy, the trombone guy, 76 trombone, that guy. He introduces himself, and as a reward for beating the game, he offers Alex a ride in his car. Then he kidnaps Alex and takes him to Rylos. So when Alex gets to Rylos, we find out that the video game has been secretly training him, and now he can be a starfighter, and he can defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada. Zur and the Kodan Armada, of course, are real, and they're a very real threat to Rylos, and all the world's protected by Rylos and the frontier and the Star League and all that. Now at this time, Alex doesn't really understand most of that. He's feeling overwhelmed, and he just wants to go home. So he orders Centauri to take him home. And then after Alex leaves, we watch the Starfighter base get destroyed by Zur, and the Kodan Armada are finally getting ready to invade. So they get back to Earth. Alex finds Beta, who we'll be calling Fake Alex for the rest of this video, and he contacts Centauri to come and get Fake Alex. When Centauri arrives, the assassin sent to kill Alex takes a shot, hits Centauri, and Centauri pretty much almost dies. Now, right before that shot, Centauri explains to Alex that Earth isn't safe, Alex's family isn't safe, nobody is safe. So Alex, being the good boy that he is, always trying to take care of everyone, puts Centauri into the car, takes him back to Rylos to get him some medical attention. And he eventually comes around and starts his starfighter training with Greg. So Fake Alex, who exists to make sure that nobody notices that Alex is out fighting a war, has some trouble integrating, shall we say. Lewis figures out there's something wrong, but nobody's listening to him because he's just a little kid. And then we get this wonderful scene where everybody's camping, and Alex's girlfriend is pissed at him. So fake Alex tries to sweet talk her by copying what this guy is trying to say.
My Venus. You're my Juliet.
My Venus.
And of course, the rival has been revealed to be a cheater, and Maggie starts wondering exactly what the hell is going on with Alex. Because we get this comical scene where, by copying this guy, he's basically admitting to cheating on Maggie, but she's smart enough to know that that's not Alex, and something is definitely up. And something is definitely up. Now, let's take a moment and talk about sweet talking. It's been my observation and experience that people really suck at it. Now, I happen to be pretty good at it, which is how someone likes me manages to attract extremely attractive women. The guys are notoriously bad at this sort of thing, but if we're being completely honest, women aren't very good at it either. So there are 4 principles to keep in mind when you want to sweet talk someone. First, you have to lead with compassion and empathy. Of course, you should be doing this all the time. When you're trying to sweet talk someone, this is how you find out what they need from you in that moment. Second, you have to actually meet their emotional needs in that moment, which you just found out what they are by being empathetic. Third, then you say the cheesiest thing you can think of that will meet those needs in the corniest way possible. And fourth, always, always, always remember to express appreciation. Now then, where were we? Right, so Maggie and fake Alex have a fight where fake Alex reveals what he really is to Maggie, and of course she doesn't believe him, so they continue fighting. Then the Zandozan, who is sent to kill Alex, shows up and shoots him, and fake Alex doesn't die, but he can see all the internal circuitry because he's an android. Then Maggie's on board. They steal the douchebag's truck, and they crash it into the communications center, killing all of the assassins and destroying the comlink. And we get the greatest expression of true love that has ever existed in the history of film.
I love you, Alex Rogan.
Then we finally come to the third act, which is the climactic battle scene. Alex and Grigg head out in the Gunstars as the Last Starfighter, and they take on the entire armada by themselves. Neither expecting to win or live, but they're going to do whatever they can. And it turns out Alex, of course, is a great starfighter, Grigg is a great pilot, and the two win against all the odds, of course. I mean, we're not watching this movie just to see our heroes get killed, Rylos overrun, and Earth eventually conquered. We're watching it for a happy ending, so they have to win. After the battle, we find that Centauri didn't die, and that's great, and now he and Alex are great friends too. So Alex brings Grigg, his newest BFF, back to the trailer park, where he says his goodbyes and I love yous to everyone, and asks Maggie to join him while he goes back to rebuild the Star League. Maggie says yes, and Alex gets the hero's happy ending. Maggie says yes, and Alex gets the hero's happy ending. So that's it. That's the story. Now, this movie is often considered a Star Wars knockoff, but just look at it. This is a pretty expensive feature film. It's not a knockoff. Okay, technically it was kind of cheap. It was $14 million to make. Star Trek at the time was spending about $25 million, and that was considered kind of cheap. The Ice Pirates, which I just covered, ended up spending $9 million, and that was definitely low budget. So Last Starfighter is kind of in between those two, but it's still not a Star Wars knockoff. Now, I couldn't find much information on the history of the movie other than the screenwriter who wrote it while he was a cab driver. But considering when it came out, it was definitely inspired at least a little bit by Star Wars. Also, it's hard to ignore the closeness of a story where a rural kid leaves home to fight an evil empire, defeats the evil empire, essentially single-handed. But it's worth pointing out, Star Wars didn't create this trope either. They copied it from someone else. I've seen someone point out Mark Twain, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But actually, this goes all the way back to David and Goliath, which is a biblical story. So having yet another science fiction version of this story does not make it a Star Wars knockoff. Also, director Nick Castle whined about how, despite every effort to make a non-Star Wars movie, every time he went to take a shot, every time he went to film a line, every time he went to do a special effects thing, he kept running into George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, and he made the comment that apparently George Lucas really knew what he was doing. Now, let's talk about the special effects, since those are usually what's cited as why this movie doesn't hold up next to modern movies. And we'll start with, you're right, the CG in this movie doesn't compare to modern movies. But that's not the issue. The reason the CG was so awesome when it was made is because it depicted an advanced video game world that all of us who played video games at the time wanted to play. In 1984, the most advanced computer we could play games on was the Commodore 64, with its rivals from Atari and Apple being pretty competitive, actually. And there were rumors of the upcoming Amiga that were running around still. The Amiga would be 16-bit, 32-bit processor, 16-bit bus. And so the Last Starfighter showed us what video games could be in the near future. So everyone who saw that movie when it came out, we all remembered the famous trench run scene from Star Wars and the amazing vector graphics game that came out that delivered that experience to us in the arcades. And so here we're seeing what we hope was going to be a repeat of that, and it was amazing. So the reason the CG here doesn't hold up compared to modern movies, it doesn't hold up now because when you compare it to modern video games, it kind of looks like an old 8-bit game. And it showed us what video games could be in the near future, but in 1984. Obviously, video games have progressed a lot since then. We've even got some photorealistic video games out there. So if you're comparing this movie to modern movies, you're making the wrong comparison. It's a video game movie, and of course, nowadays, within the retro gaming community, this movie is getting a lot more attention, along with the original Tron, to be honest. All their other special effects are fantastic and believable, like Centauri's star car, the alien costumes, the Zandozan transformation, and all of that. These are A-grade special effects that match or even exceed anything that was out at the same time. It's really just the space sequences that look like a video game. So does it hold up as a movie? Absolutely. It's a character-driven story. We have Centauri, also known as Alien Harold Hill, who's out looking to make some money by finding starfighters using peculiar and unorthodox means. Of course, he finds Alex Rogan. Alex wants a better life for himself, his girlfriend, and his family. And while he initially balks at the challenge of being a starfighter, his solid morals and devotion to the people he loves ultimately push him to do the right thing, fight the bad guys, and through all of this, he finds that better life for himself, his girlfriend, and his family. Now, it is true most of that better life is only hinted at. Because there's no sequel to show us any of it. But we do see him and Maggie getting on the ship at the end and going off to have this life. Then we have Greg, who reminds us not only of the importance of courage, but to reinforce that family love is universal across all cultures. White people don't have a monopoly on that. Then we have Otis telling Alex that when that opportunity comes, he has to take it, because it will never come again. Now, the love between Alex and Maggie is so epic that when fake Alex is confessing to cheating, accidentally, she knows better than to take it at face value and to instead find out what the hell is going on. When she finds out, she provides moral and logistical support to fake Alex in destroying the Zandozan so she can protect her boyfriend and have his back. Alex's mom, predictably, is frustrated and overwhelmed, and overall, she just strikes me as being defeated. So when she sees her son exceed even her wildest fantasies about whatever's possible, it reinvigorates her. And I'm sure if there was a sequel, she'd be like President of the United States or Ambassador to the US for Milos or something like that, being inspired by her son. So we have heroes who are believable and lovable, and we can even relate to enemies, primarily in the form of Lord Krill, who unfortunately doesn't survive the movie. There's also a character-driven story that starts the main conflict between Rylos and Zur, but it's not really told in detail. We see enough of it to know what happened, but we don't need the details. So if they do remake this movie, I don't want to see the details of what happened with Zur. We saw enough, and we saw all we needed to see. We're seeing the conflict through the eyes of Alex Rogan because he's our guy. He's us, and we are him. This movie is also eminently quotable.
Victory or death! Victory or death! Victory or death!
Me and my, how'd you put it, strange sexual urges aren't talking to you anymore.
How many are left?
Including yourself?
Yeah!
One! Let's attack!
It'll be a slaughter!
That's the spirit! Last Starfighter.
Is dead. And did Galoka think the Ulus were too ugly to save?
As with many of these lower budget science fiction films, one of the ways they keep the budget lower, rather than hire bona fide movie stars, they hire people from television. So we see a lot of that here, with the exception, of course, of Robert Preston, who is most famous as a stage performer. Although it is worth pointing out that while this wasn't the last time he was on screen, it was his last theatrical appearance before he died. Many of the other casts did do other movies, but for the most part, their careers were on TV and some voice acting. There are also some serious Star Trek connections. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but Will Wheaton was in this movie. And once again, all of his speaking lines got cut in post, just like they did in Nemesis, and I'm sure he's still whining about it. We also have Mark Alamo. Alamo? You probably remember him as playing Dukat, Gold Dukat, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but here he plays the human disguise of the Zandozan, thus establishing his future as a villain. And the lady who played Granny Gordon, curiously enough, was in The Cage, the original pilot for Star Trek back in 1964. I presume that was before she was a granny. Now, none of the leads were in Star Trek, but if you threw a rock amongst the cast of that movie, you would hit someone who would be on Star Trek in the future. There's also some interesting Halloween connections. Nick Castle played Michael Myers in the first Halloween movie. Alex Rogan was in the second Halloween movie, and in fact, during post-production of that, Nick Castle saw him and asked that director if he could cast Lance Guest in The Last Starfighter. And Dan O'Herlihy, who played Grigg, was in Halloween 3. And curiously, for whatever reason, nobody actually believed this movie was going to go anywhere. So all the video game tie-ins, the action figures, all the merchandising efforts, nobody pursued him. Nobody wanted to lose the money on him. And by the time the movie proved itself by being successful, it was too late to start any of those things up. So I consider this one of the greatest missed opportunities for video games ever. And it's a damn shame nobody's used modern graphics cards to make this game. But I guess the problem with that is that if a player actually beats the record, there's no car to take them to Rylos, and that's the most important part of this game. Now, this is one of those movies that really affected me when I saw it, because I was living in an unincorporated village in southern New Mexico when I saw it. And it was a bit of a slow burner for me, because I was in middle school when I saw it, but it didn't really hit till my senior year in high school. I had the girlfriend, had an opportunity to go to college right there in Las Cruces. And I could be a computer nerd, we'd get married, have a bazillion kids, have the white picket fence and all of that. And whenever I looked into my future, I was exasperatedly bored with it, and I did not want to live that life. So I broke up with the girlfriend, packed a bag, jumped on a plane, and moved to Rylos. Austin, Texas. So while the movie hasn't directly affected my writing, it did change the direction of my life, which, while my life hasn't exactly been easy, it's never been boring. I think that the fundamental theme of this movie, taking the opportunities that come while taking care of the people you love, is easily the most enduring and endearing part of the whole story. Once again, we have a fun science fiction romp that takes its characters on a very relatable journey that tells us, the audience, things about ourselves and our lives that we may not have noticed or ever discovered if it wasn't for the movie. Now, I generally don't put this movie on any of my lists of favorite movies. Not because it isn't one of my favorites, but because I find that most people who watch it only get the surface level story. They just see it as just another video game movie, and they don't look deeper into the very rich journey that both Alex and Maggie go on together, even if they're not seen on screen very much. In the end, if someone's going to watch it and think it's just a corny video game movie, I'd just as soon have them watch another Star Trek movie. I do find the symbolism of the video game as a bridge to a better life interesting, because my work with Armageddon Advanced has definitely served as a bridge of sorts. But even when you dig into earlier games that have affected me over the years, you'll find Ultima 4, which I am just dying to use as the basis for a recovery meeting. Its system of virtues comes straight out of Buddhism, and the recovery meeting I put the most effort into is inspired by Buddhism. So why not Ultima 4? It's literally the only role-playing game ever made where the whole point of the game is to just be a good person. And of course, if I use it as the basis of a recovery meeting, then you can pursue your recovery by playing the game. Sometimes I have to grab my Nerf gun, sit outside, and fire at random rocks that keep rolling past me. Thank you for watching the video. If you made it this far, you definitely need a like and subscribe. Ring the bell if you want to get notifications. And don't forget to join my Patreon. At some point, when people join my Patreon, this wall is going to be filled with names. Obviously, there aren't any right now. YouTube might be suggesting some videos here for you to watch. You could also do that. Have a nice day.